Janitorial Manager presents the Business of Cleaning podcast, the podcast that brings you the information you need to be successful in the cleaning industry. The Business of Cleaning podcast provides in-depth interviews with successful personalities from the commercial cleaning industry, as well as discussing the trending topics that matter to you and your organization.
Welcome into the Business of Cleaning podcast, your number one source of information on the commercial cleaning industry. We release new episodes monthly, live from the Janitorial Manager studio located in Toledo, Ohio. I'm Tim Clagg, the marketing communications specialist here at Janitorial Manager and your host of the Business of Cleaning podcast. Happy International Cleaning Week. We're delighted to have a very special guest this month, Grant Aslett, the director of the Museum of Clean located in Pocatello, Idaho. Welcome to the show, Grant. The first thing I want to get your opinion on is the growth of International Cleaning Week. We've seen state officials putting doctrinations out there and marking that whole week, March 24th through the 30th on the calendar, representing International Cleaning Week. What does that mean to you as somebody who's been in this industry your entire life, and somebody like you and your father who have devoted, your entire lives to the industry? How important is this?
Yeah, I was doing some training last week, and one of my key points to the cleaning industry was stand out. Unfortunately, in the cleaning industry, we do it at night. We clean at night. Everybody wants to forget about the janitor. Even in schools, it's like the school janitor. Where is he? It's we're trying to be hidden. So that was one of my key points to talk to the contract cleaners, is to stand out, do something that helps you stand out. Of course, that's, the whole mission of the museum is to stand out in the industry and help people recognize the importance of cleaning. So and I've been involved the last couple of years, especially with that. ISSA reached out because they petitioned Idaho, where the museum is, to have the governor sign it. And the governor, the same thing, cleaning it, just kind of went, and they refused, or just threw it and said, we're not going to sign that proclamation. So they reached out to me and said, hey, could you reach out and see if they would reconsider? So we reached out to the governor, and they did. This is just right after COVID, and they did reconsider. And in fact, they actually, the governor's in Western Idaho. The museum is in Eastern Idaho, so it's 3.5, 4-hour trip. So we actually convinced the governor to come over and visit the museum and sign the proclamation at the museum. So we got the mayor of the different towns and all the media and stuff. So, this happened a couple of years ago. And so we've got the governor to sign it every year, kind of brought them along. But now this year that was on their list, and they actually called me and said, hey, are we doing this again? We didn't get him in the museum last year. We actually went to his office, but this year we just had him sign it and post it on. So, but it was kind of interesting, because all of a sudden the governor, of course, once you start talking to them, everybody has roots in cleaning.
Yes.
They were a janitor at school, or they helped out cleaning in their business, family business or whatever. So, and it was interesting how the governor told some stories about connecting to the industry. And actually, my dad did a bunch of talking or some speaking for the governor when he was involved in some community and some youth years ago. So it was a great connection. But it's amazing how many connections we have with cleaning, and the Cleaning Week just helps us expand that a little bit and helps people recognize the importance of cleaning in our lives, especially during and through and after COVID. Of course, we recognize that importance all along, but now people are starting to understand that a little bit more. International Cleaning Week helps us connect to that even better.
And how important is that? It started off as National Cleaning Week here in the United States, but now, due to popular demand, it is an international week. So how important as it continues to grow is it to get that representation all throughout the world?
Well, we're concentrated on our own little sphere sometimes, so we kind of forget that I mean, we've done, in the US, we've not mastered cleaning by any means, but we definitely manage it better, and in our hospitals and different things. But you recognize how many people die around the world every year, just basic sanitation, hand washing, things like that. So we've actually done a pretty good job. So as we reach out and look around the world, it's like, hey, everybody needs this, even at the hand washing level, to educate people on how sanitation is an important part of our life, from just basic sanitation to facility care and sanitation. So, and ISSA, of course, they're involved in that pretty heavily, and they've kind of done that with their organization over the years. Kind of said, hey, we're an international corporation or industry and foundation now, association, versus just our little cleaning bubble.
And ISSA last year celebrating their 100th birthday. That was quite the celebration in Vegas last November. But a big part of your life for over the last decade has been the Museum of Clean, opened in 2011. But the idea began some 30 years prior, when your father stopped at the Edison Museum in Detroit, Michigan. What kind of opened his eyes to come to the conclusion to open a museum for clean?
I think he says it was a hammer museum or some weird museum that he walked into. I think he was on a scouting jamboree or something, a national jamboree, and so a bunch of scouts, they tried to keep him busy and all the different things. So they walked into this hammer museum, which I think there's 25,000 museums in the country, and we recognize the Smithsonian and the Natural History Museums, some of the big ones that we hear about and see advertised, but there's just a lot of roadside museums. So as he went in there, and again, you go back to that stand out, he's always looking for ways to stand out, and he just, it kind of dawned on him, like, there's nothing like this. We want, the industry wants people want to hide the industry. We need to, stand out. And so that's kind of got something in his brain. And then he came across some antiques, some old vacuums and different things. He started throwing them in our collection. And then from that, I guess we'd probably go into that, but he actually searched out and bought a large pre-electric, it was a collection somebody had from Europe and from the United States, so pre-electric vacuums. So that was before we had electricity, and that ranged, I think we have one of the four original first patented vacuums, and that was patented back in 1867, and actually suction type vacuum. It was manually, created in suction, but we actually have one of the only ones in the world known today, and that is just a ton of different types of vacuums, pre-electric.
And what I find so interesting, that purchase kind of was the kickstart that got this thing going. How in the world do you gather the information, the resources? This purchase was made in, I believe, 2005, 2006. So where do you go to turn to make this kind of purchase, and how do you develop those relationships when you're looking to make this kind of a unique purchase? Because when you think about it, it is a very unique set of instruments that you are looking for to fill into the museum.
Well, there aren't that many. Most people threw away everything. It's interesting now. You go around and you go to antique shops and stuff, and it's amazing all the things we collect. And now with eBay and the different, the internet, we can find things and connect up. And so, these people are opening their old barns that have been closed for 40, 50, 60 years and finding stuff like, whoa. But normally when somebody goes through their house after a parent or somebody dies, they store everything away because But now, for a unique antique tin, people get hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So unfortunately, in the cleaning industry, a lot of people threw all that stuff away. So we don't see a lot of, a lot of things in the industry. So it was interesting that somebody had the vision to actually, um, you know, actually collect something and get a collection. And so it's kind of unique, came together. And, my dad's philosophy, I think, in business and everything is, he wasn't great, or he wasn't prone to invest in stocks and, a lot of that stuff. He always put his money back into the business and grow the business. So he saw an opportunity to take some of profits and different things and buy something that's unique and give back to the industry. So he took a chunk of money at the time, and probably back in the day when growing his business and expanding, that it was a pretty big chunk of money.
And preserving that history is so important, whether it's passing down family heirlooms or taking pride like you guys have in the industry to preserve those memories, as you said, that so many people didn't think anything of at that time and just threw it to the wayside. So you guys play an important part of history and helping keep the history alive for the men and women who have worked in this industry. Take us through that, what it means to you guys to be able to give back when you guys have had so much success as a family, you and your father, in the industry.
Well, he recognized that years ago, and we recognized that the importance of the people working in the industry. A lot of people look down on janitors, and that was, he tells a bunch of different stories about being the guy, it's like, you be good or you're going to end up just like him, pointing over to the janitor. And instead it should be the other way around, the pride and especially as we look lately, as we look more in sanitation. So that's always been a key part of his goal is to recognize the workers and the cleaning workers. He has some great stories about that throughout the years, and he used to do a lot of training and a lot of speaking that would elevate. In fact, at the training, one of the icons in the industry in the green cleaning side of things, Steve Askin, he pulled me aside and he was just saying what an impact those messages back in the day. And he's, back when he was starting, has become one of the leaders in the industry. And that was from that attitude years ago from my dad and from what we did. So that's just been our whole history. And the cleaning in the museum is kind of an extension to that, to say, hey, the industry is important, but all the people that work in the industry, how important they are.
And how important is it, too, for just a casual observer coming in to the museum that might not necessarily know a lot or have a perceived prior notion in their mind before stepping into the museum, and then you see people come away and say, wow. And then they have a newfound respect to the cleaner in the industry and the technology advancements throughout the course of time. I'm sure you could share those stories. Do you have any off the top of your head that you've seen during your time with the museum?
Well, it's interesting. It's funny. That's a great observation you pulled out of there, because so the people that know the West, the museum is in Pocatello, Idaho. Mm-hmm. So we're a little out of the way when it comes to roadside museums are all over, but Pocatello isn't the biggest traveled. But if you're headed to Yellowstone National Park, it's kind of on that way. So we actually get, if you know the West, Salt Lake City, we're about 2.5 hours straight north of Salt Lake City, but we're on that road to Yellowstone. Mm-hmm. So actually the museum itself gets a lot of those travelers that have no idea about the industry, or some they're just the type that will stop off at any weird museum and just take it in, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, or whatever. And it's amazing because, like you said, we helped ISSA celebrate their 100 years, and we brought a small portion of the museum down to Las Vegas. And we actually set it up in the convention. And of course, the industry goes wild when they see all that stuff that they're looking at a buffer that's 120 years old electricity, in 1899, you could barely find a building that had electricity.
Right.
So that was, you know, pretty amazing. And so the industry looking at that and going wild, looking at that. But it's the observation you made about the people walking in a cleaning museum, not knowing what to expect, and after the going through, just blown away, and all the connections they start to make in their own personal life that's related to cleaning. And a lot of them, of course, go back to their household cleaning and stuff. But all of a sudden, they look at where they work, where they shop, all those, where they eat, restaurants, all those things come back to, and it has those connections to cleaning. And so it's amazing when they walk out, the new respect they have for cleaning.
And especially from another aspect, a lot of younger people, a lot of children, that next group that possibly could become involved in the industry, introducing them to that history and involvement at a young age is crucial, is important to kind of set the tone for possibly the next future, the next wave of industry workers, because this is an industry average age around 55. And now there's more options than ever before. As talking with other guests in the past, the forecast for the industry's future is positive and bright with so many opportunities. So you could get a kid from a young age coming through the museum that really catches on and decides this is what they want to do, because this is a skilled trade industry.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't get too many people. It's funny. We have some people that their kids come in, and there's a handful of people that say, my son, from the earliest age, just obsessed with vacuums. And you see stories about that it's just all, I call them vacuum savants. It's just a passion. But unfortunately, we don't have that draw yet that, these kids coming in saying, I want to be a cleaner. And that comes in different ways. A lot of the people that are professionals in our industry got involved in maintenance and in different aspects of, building maintenance, building care, and they fit in that mold. So typically it's hard to inspire. And that's one thing we're trying to do. But one thing we have done with the museum is, we do a lot of, the school kids come in for a field day, and it's amazing. We have 30, 40 kids, and all of a sudden, the light goes on, how important cleaning their room. But we have a bunch of letters, saying, what happened to my kid? He went on this field trip, and he actually is cleaning his room now. So it does have an impact, and we're trying to teach kids, whether it's just wash their hands better, to clean up their room, and pick up that we say, if you're old enough to mess up, you're old enough to clean up. So as young as they are, we try to teach them that it's their responsibility to clean up after themselves and keep a nice, clean, sanitary thing. And as soon as you can, teach them how to clean the bathroom, clean, basic cleaning in the kitchen. And because a lot of our, we usually say, I had the 24-hour flu. I've talked to medical people, and they say no such thing. It's usually some food thing that we picked up in the kitchen, because we didn't clean the kitchen well enough. So we're inspiring, and we're making an impact, but unfortunately we probably have, but we haven't had many come in and say, okay, that's my life mission is to be a cleaner. But we are making an impact in the cleaning world.
You guys are on the right path, and your family, such an iconic family in the commercial cleaning industry. Obviously, your father started his company, Varsity Contractors, thousands of seminars. He's been on Oprah, Regis and Philbin, QVC as well. And you got an opportunity as a young man growing up to go in the field, have those experiences. How important, and what were the memories learning in the field from your dad that helped you have a successful career in this industry?
Well, like I tell people, you can't pick your family. Well, you can't pick your father's profession either. So he happened to be a cleaner in a commercial So I just grew up being that was normal, and that was just a great profession to be in. So I never had that look on the cleaners like, oh, they're below us. So that was always my impression. But yeah, I remember going on jobs when I was 9, 10, 11, as young. I mean, I don't know if I was that much help, but as I grew up, when I was in high school, I did it was a cleaning route. They have the little phone buildings. It was when we had the dial-up phones and stuff, and they had
Yep.
call them CDOs, central dialing offices, and that's in these little towns. They had these little buildings that everything went through for these towns. So we'd have to go in and clean them either 2 times a month or 1 time a month. So I had a route when I was in high school that I went around the rural communities and cleaned these things up. I think when I was younger, one of Varsity's contracts was to open up Grand Canyon.
Yes.
So they would take the national parks, Bryce, Zion, and Grand Canyon in southern Utah, northern Arizona, and they would open them up for the season. Especially Grand Canyon, because it was such a high elevation, they would close that off, so you wouldn't even get in there. Some of the other ones you can get in and do some stuff in the winter, but we would be the first crew. I mean, they would have to plow away the snow, and we'd be the first crew. And there was always a caretaker that ran out and grabbed us and hugged us because hadn't seen anybody for 4 or 5 months. And we would actually clean the whole park, all the cabins, the lodges, all the windows, carpets, and everything. And then, like 2 weeks later, they would open the gates to all the things. So I remember cleaning. I mean, we would work 16-hour days cleaning carpets, and I even got to hang over the edge of Grand Canyon as we cleaned those big windows, those picture windows that you stare out of the lodge over Grand Canyon.
That's incredible.
So I don't think the safety mechanisms were that great back then. So I was probably risking my life, but it was sure fun to look behind and see the seventh one or the eighth one or whatever they call it, the world, and clean that window.
And also, too, in our introductory conversation, I thought this was very interesting. You guys did a lot of work with portion packs and training, and you guys actually at night would go into various prisons and train the prisoners how to be able to operate those packs. That shows me how dedicated your guys and your family is to the industry to help everyone, no matter all walks of life.
Now that was, I did that for several years. I'd go into prisons, and we would, it was the portion pack company had the packs, and it really worked in prisons because if they used the bottles, then prisoners are pretty creative. They would fill it up with water and pour off some, and I don't know what they were trying to make hooch or whatever they were trying to make. And, I can't imagine you could do much with some of the cleaners, but so the portion packs worked really well because they could count them, and one pack went in one bucket or one spray bottle. So, but they needed training, and a lot of people just sold them the products, but I was involved in a whole system, so I would actually go in. I mean, I'd be in there 1, 2 in the morning when they didn't have traffic on the floors, and we'd teach them how to clean those floors. In fact, in Idaho, I made a bet with the warden up there. I said, you let me train your guys, your inmates, and I'll have the best floors in the industry. I mean, every single prison warden that walks in and looks at your prison, and then I'd convince the inmates to say, hey, you can't do, a lot of you are in there and you can't do much, but if you could have nice shiny floors, you're going to be the warden's favorite.
Right. Take pride in that.
So, and it meant a lot to me because a lot of people treat, just like janitors, they treat prisoners like, hey, you're in there, you're scum of the earth. But several came to me afterwards and said, hey, I appreciate you treating me like a human being and treating me and training me and helping me do these things. So that meant a lot to me that I was walking. Not only was I just doing my job, selling cleaners in there, but actually, they appreciate it. And it's the attitude, the family or whatever, just my interest in the cleaners. So that meant a lot to me that they would they would pull me aside and said, "Hey, I appreciate you treating me like instead of just a number, somebody." And we had training programs to help people that when they got out, that could be a profession or part of their life after they got out. So I had great training.
And that's great because, like, once you're released, you're expected to rejoin the workforce, rejoin society, and you were preparing and giving them a added skill that they could put on their resume to earn a job once they got out. We're talking with Grant Aslett, director of the Museum for Clean and cleaning consultant in the commercial cleaning industry. Trust and authenticity are two important factors in virtually everything we do, whether it's business, whether it's getting up, reading a newspaper, reading our news for the day. And museums certainly have the consumer's trust, at over a 90% trust rate. How important is it, first, Grant, to have that high success rate and percentage with visitors? And how do you guys continue to expand to raise that number in the future?
Yeah, it's something I've, not initially, I didn't realize that, but after working with the museum and kind of helping the museum grow, you realize that of all the industries, of all the things we deal with, we used to do, the fire guys and the police used to have this super high trust level. And now everything, it seems like, society's trying to pull everybody down. Those trust levels have gone down and down. Teachers, a lot of those, it's frustrating. It's hard to see, of course, politicians, some politicians are in the, 9 or 10% trust level. So it's actually it's actually very unique to have an avenue where you have high trust level. A part of that is it's authentic. When you walk in a museum, you're looking at history, you're looking at real history. So you can't fake that. It's like you see it, and this is what they actually used in 1945 or 1952, and you can tell that story. And when you tell those stories from that history that they can actually see and witness and hold and feel, I mean, we have pump vacuums that get pumped. I mean, when somebody comes in the museum and we have a couple that you can actually use, it just goes, wow, but that trust level comes from the authenticity of a museum and knowing that, hey, you're watching, you're looking, you're seeing that the actual history right in front of your face. And I think most museums honor that trust level. And so with the museum, we've recognized that we can tell stories and connect with people through that museum stories that nobody else can do. If you take somebody that, like if I came on your podcast and I was representing a company, that trust level goes way down because, he's just trying to sell me something. but through a museum, we can tell stories and connect like nothing else. So, it is a big responsibility to maintain that trust level, but it's easier to do it with a museum because you have the history right in front of you and you can't fake it.
One thing I believe that separates the Museum of Clean from other museums, where historical museums, you can't really touch a lot of things, a lot of the exhibits you guys encourage. There's a ton of interactive displays, exhibits, products that everybody walking through can get firsthand experience to be able to interact or work out one of those older displays.
That's a great point. And that was one of my dad's visions, is to have it as interactive as possible. Yeah, we're not going to let somebody touch our 1867 one of a kind, but
right.
We do have, like I said, a bunch of those pumper vacuums that people can actually try and use and handle. We have a window that people actually can squeegee with and interact, and we just, it's just part of what we try to do. Is like for a while there, we had a squirt. People could play with squirt bottles and see, like adjusting it. Oh, that's a mist. That's a spray. Just some education stuff. And we're trying to do a little bit more of that, but we try to make it as hands-on as possible. And just recently we've partnered with some STEM a group that are doing a part of the museum, so even more so educating and getting people involved in different aspects of the interaction of how things work and especially cleaning. So
guys are home and have one of my favorite things there when researching about the museum. It's home to the world's largest janitor, Big Don, standing over 20 feet tall. And my understanding is there's only a few of these still remaining in the world. Stands over 20 feet tall. It's indoors in the exhibit. Where and how were you guys able to find one of these rare hidden gems?
So again, you go back to what I talked a little earlier about standing out. How do you stand out? And when people walk in different museums, usually there's something that kind of gives them a shock or they remember. So part of that standing out is how do we stand out? And that giant janitor came from in the 50s and 60s, I think. They used to make these big muffler man.
Mm-hmm.
And they would put him in front of these muffler shops, these big, tall guys, and he would hold a muffler in front of him. So it was a display. And a lot of those muffler shops went out of business. But these guys kind of got toppled over, set in backyards, thrown out in fields. And then several years ago, people started looking for them and collecting them. So there's actually a club that goes around and visits all the revised muffler man, or
Wow.
They had some Paul Bunyan guys with axes and stuff. So we were lucky to find one that was in pretty good condition. I think we hauled him from Kansas or Oklahoma or something on a big truck and put him back together, painted him up, and then turned him into a janitor. So now he holds the world's biggest mop, But it is because he's kind of hidden. It's a pretty unique situation. But he's kind of hidden behind another exhibit, and you walk around the corner, and all of a sudden you look up and
that wow factor.
And we named him Don now, of course, in honor of my dad. But so he's a janitor now, has his uniform on and holds his giant mop. But again, it's stand out, do something that stands out. And that was one way in the museum that we could stand out a little bit more and have people, have an experience. And we actually get people that don't come for the museum as much as they come to sign off, because they have little books, and we sign the book saying, hey, you visited, and we have him numbered and certified.
Oh, wow.
As one around the country, but he happens to be the biggest janitor in the world now.
I marvel at the yesteryear of marketing. I mean, just the ideas from the 40s all the way up, and everybody thinks marketing nowadays. I love those figures, Sinclair, the dinosaur, right? That's where my brain goes. And I've just marveled at the, old school marketing. It's just such a great tool to utilize and have stand out. The museum is dedicated to being focused on being green. 80% of the prior building, which was actually built, I believe, in 1916, was recycled, and much of it done by recovering the brick and wood. What are some other areas the museum is doing to focus on going green overall?
So we decided when we built, we took the original building that was built. I mean, it's a tank. It was when it was built in 1916. I mean, they built it. I can't remember what they were. I think it was an old Salt Lake hardware building, their expansion out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And for years it was used as a creamery place, but the walls and everything, it had insulation, big, thick insulation. So as we kind of gutted it, all that stuff, we recycled. I think we were one of the highest they call them brownfields or whatever, all the things that came out of there. In fact, you talk about the bricks, we reused a ton on when we put a little annex on that building, but also we had pallets and pallets, and we sold them off as, instead of just going in the landfill, we actually used them. And I've been involved in a couple projects down in Salt Lake on a remodel with a film studio. We actually pulled a bunch of those bricks and laid it around the film studio. And, we have so they're 100-year-old walls, basically 110-year-old walls in this film studio. But so instead of all that going to the landfill, we reused it. And the way we built it, the concrete we poured, we did some special things with the concrete. We put in big reclamation tanks so it collects all the rainwater, even though Idaho doesn't get a ton of rain. But it's amazing when we fill those up and we use that for irrigation. Just in looking at the life cycle of the building, a lot of these buildings are built to last 20, 30, 40 years. You go to Las Vegas and you see some of these casinos. I mean, the life cycle of some of those casinos are 30 years.
Right.
They rip them all down in 30 years and build brand new fancy things. We expect this building to be here in another 100 years. So
awesome.
it'll be 200 years old. And we have our rooftop garden where we're just deciding to, we planned it and build it that way. But I think within the next year or two, we got some funding to put that rooftop garden in. So we just looked at it like anything, we need to be responsible. And, and some of the green stuff, I think, is greenwash, and goes too far and doesn't make a difference. But everything we did actually, we did it to make a difference. And so as you walk through the museum, the heating and the electricity we use is like way down just because we designed it and managed that way. So, it's hard to do, it's easier sometimes to go the cheap route and not do those things and say, hey, I don't care. I'm going to be gone in 40 years. So if the building's gone, I don't care. Well, we want this. It might not be a museum in 100 years, but it definitely will be standing.
And the legacy continuing to grow. What educational programs and initiatives are you guys looking at in the future aimed at raising awareness and appreciation for cleaning professionals, for cleaning history? Have you guys kind of sat down and thought, okay, maybe, we've got the products. Now we can, raise awareness towards that appreciation for the people in the industry?
Yeah, so as you open a museum, and it's primarily been funded by my father's legacy, selling some businesses and doing stuff. So it's partly his legacy, but he's handing it over to the industry. As he's 89 this year, and he's still plugging along, still does some tours in the museum and stuff. So
That's
he's
awesome.
He's still getting along and doing his thing because it's his thing. But it is being handed over to the industry. Hey, this is an industry opportunity to tell the story and educate. And like you said, hey, bring more quality people into this industry that want to be in the industry and make it a profession. I'm working on a couple projects now. Just tell you one that's kind of in the process. I call it Life of a Germ. So we take, and it's an education program for 5th and 6th graders. So eventually, if we're successful, we'll go into these grade schools and teach 5th and 6th graders on basic cleaning, just basically, when you come in the museum, you learn some of that stuff, but we want millions of grade school kids to learn sanitation and stuff. So I call it Life of a Germ. So it's a project that's kind of starting out, but we've done some work on it. Eventually we'll take it out, and hopefully we'll have to run out and get some money from Procter & Gamble or Clorox or some of the big companies, to help fund that. But to educate, because initially when you're opening up a museum, a lot of times you're so focused on that physical museum.
Right.
the vision's always been international or national, but sometimes you get too focused on just surviving as that small little museum, a physical museum. So that's one project we're working on that's kind of interesting and will impact millions of school kids over the next 10, 15 years.
You guys have already expanded. We talked about what's the overall goal and impact as you guys look to continue to showcase your father's legacy, the industry. What is the goals and expectations as a whole as you guys continue to move forward and continue to grow the history?
Well, one thing you talked about it earlier. It's the industry and the cleaning world, internationally, and how important it is to our lives. We just can't. A lot of people, and like I said before, when people go in the museum, all of a sudden they see all the connections, and so to help people understand those connections and bring cleaning up in that professional level, so we're not hitting in the back. I went through 2 or 3 airports in the last week, and it's amazing how a good example is when they redesigned the Salt Lake City airport. They designed it so they hit all the plugs. So even the cleaners, I didn't even think about the cleaners, how they needed to access electricity for their vacuums and stuff. And so even today, we don't include that cleaner in the design process, how important that is. We have buildings that they designed the janitor closet like 2 stories down back in the freight elevator. So to get access to your cleaning chemicals and equipment, you're like going through 3/4 of the building. So and we're starting to see a difference in that. So our vision is to upgrade the profession, so we have more people wanting and make it a profession to be a part of the profession. We want to connect like International Cleaning when the governor can sign that proclamation, and the more and more governors that say, hey, and then all of a sudden, like last year, we had the people from Boise State University, several hospitals, cleaning people in the governor's office, and the governor able to look them eye to eye and thanking the people that cleaned the Capitol in Idaho and have that recognition. So it's a long process, but we're all in it together. But and the museum has a unique angle to do that with that trust. So we're going to continue to tell the story, connect. Again, we'll go to the trade shows and display the museum outside of Pocatello the most we can, just so people can see and touch and feel that rather than just read about it or hear about it.
Grant, we appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and we're so glad to have you on during International Cleaning Week. Appreciate you taking time to share those insights, the knowledge on the Museum of Clean. Where can people go to get their tickets from your guys' website, and how can they follow the museum on social media if they're in your guys' neck of the woods?
Yeah, museumofclean.com is our website. You can go on there and you can go, and it has some stuff. Again, we're actually in the process of, with my dad's age and stuff, he wasn't much into social media and stuff. So he focused more on the physical part of it. But so there's a new focus in the last year or two that, hey, we need to be more accessible on social media and out there. I've done a little bit on connecting the industry and out there, actually bringing the museum to ISSA and different things. So, but if you go to museumofclean.com, kind of check in. I think we have a Facebook page and a Instagram page. Yeah. Not much activity, but we'll see a ton going forward because we've actually put some emphasis on that. So, but the best place to go is museumofclean.com and connect. And, if you have any questions or something, if they want to reach out to me, you can kind of go through my emails, I think, gaslett@museumofclean.com. So we're always willing to connect up, and anything we do, and we appreciate what you're doing is not a lot. I mean, I've been on a couple podcasts and a couple things, but boy, there isn't, we need way more people telling a story and connecting the outside world to the importance of clean.
And it's been a pleasure to be able to tell your guys' story that
has expanded so long in the industry, and it's continuing to grow. And can't wait to touch base with you again. That will complete this month's episode of the Business of Cleaning podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you get podcasts from. Also, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and your comments. From everyone at Janitorial Manager, our guest, Grant Aslett, I'm Tim Clack saying so long until next time.